Welcome to the Tempo Storm Meta Snapshot Breakdown for May 31st, 2018. Following the recent nerfs, the meta has shaken up and even brought new decks to life. For one of the first times in a while, all 9 classes are represented in the 2 highest tiers. This helps to bring a refreshing ladder and tournament environment as there's a large variance in decks. Every few days, new decks show up and sneak their way into the meta, and this will likely persist in the coming weeks. Without further ado, let's jump into Tier 1 to see what's dominating the post-nerf meta. Leading Tier 1 in the Meta Snapshot is Token Druid. With other classes being nerfed, Druid has once again risen to glory. But rather than growing Jade Golems, the class now features small yet consistent waves of token minions. Relying on cards such as Violet Teacher and Whispering Woods to flood the board, Token Druid has an easy time flooding a board to contest aggro decks or pressure control archetypes. With Savage Roar and Branching Paths, these boards can quickly be made threatening and often turn into surprise lethals. Still remaining at the top of the throne, Control and Cube Warlock find themselves sitting comfortably. Despite the nerfs it previously faced, Warlock is still very strong. With such a large arsenal of removal, any token or minion-based deck will constantly face the problem of having their board wiped. If that's not enough for you, Skull of the Minari and Possessed Lackey will continue to allow Warlock to cheat out Void Lords in the mid-game. This gives the class an easy way to stabilize after dealing with their opponent's board. With Gul'dan and Skull of the Minari untouched by the nerfs, Cubeblock also found a place in the top of the tier lists. Following Warlock in the snapshot is Miracle Rogue. It's one of the few archetypes that can bully slower decks. With Sap, even Void Lords can be answered, allowing minions to connect face in the later stages of the game. Falderay Strider is extremely strong, allowing you to build a resilient board of 4/4 minions as you draw them, presenting great synergy with the Gadgets and Auctioneer game plan. Miracle Rogue also features a lot of burst in the form of Leroy, Cold Bloods, and Eviscerates, giving the classic Miracle deck a chance to pressure any deck on the ladder with sudden lethals. Catching the end of Tier 1 right in its claws is the much-discussed Shutterwalk Shaman. To some surprise, Shutterwalk Shaman does a lot of things very well, which helps it fit right into the top alongside the previously mentioned decks. With the Shutterwalk combo handing control decks an almost certain defeat, it essentially has insane matchups against the majority of the field. With its bad matchups falling into Cubeblock and less powerful decks, Shutterwalk seems likely to be catching on and not letting go of its tight clench on the meta. These anti-control victories are almost guaranteed if Shutterwalk duplicates itself with the Saronite Chain Gang Battlecry first before Battlecry Recycling Grumble. New decks have been taken to the ladder as of the recent patch. Some seem like archetypes that are more fun than competitive, while others run the chance of seeing tournament play in this weekend's DreamHack Austin. Even Warlock is one of the more powerful new decks, combining Gen Greymane with Warlock stall cards. This is a new form of mid-range Warlock that plays very similarly to Handlock, which pros once described as more of a tempo deck than a control archetype. The new Even Warlock archetype embraces this opinion, with Mountain Giants, Twilight Drakes, and Hooked Reavers. Recruit Hunter is another deck that's come to life recently. The combo-style archetype is likely the closest thing we'll have to a control hunter deck in a while. It uses a combination of Kathrina Winterwisp with Charged Devilsaur, King Crush, and Carnivorous Cube, and Play Dead to summon waves of large, charging beasts. Along with Hunter spells to stall the game, this deck allows players to get to the later turns where they can adopt the Cubeblock strategy and hurl waves of minions larger than Doomguard. Finally, Quest Priest has actually started to see some play due to the power of Amara, Warden of Hope, and Zola the Gorgon. By having access to priest removal spells, surviving while completing the quest isn't nearly that hard. Once you finally complete the quest, Zola allows you to gain a secondary copy of Amara to duplicate the 40 healing. While more of a fun deck than a super competitive one, this priest list definitely can win games, being the closest to a viable fatigue deck we've seen since Deadman's Warrior. In surprising fashion, there are a large amount of Tier 2 decks which are just good enough to be viable ladder decks in certain meta states. Due to this new ladder experience being a result of both a set rotation and a big patch, the average power level of cards is much lower than in previous metagames. This helps bring many more into relevancy. Taunt Druid is a deck that became popular due to Tides of Time prior to the balance changes. The deck finds itself back in the running for most powerful deck of the expansion as it features strong tools to survive aggro and damage-oriented decks. With the use of Hadronox and Witching Hour, games can be locked out with ease. Honestly, if it weren't for the popularity of Shutterwalk Shaman, which can disrupt the Taunt Druid game plan, this could have been a Tier 1 deck. As mentioned earlier, Even Warlock is a new deck that's founded on the idea of being able to weave in hero powers frequently. The deck comes with the added benefits of most Warlock's removal being evenly costed. When starting on Coin and hero powering twice, Evenlock is able to play Mountain Giant on turn 3, which is insanely powerful and difficult for most decks to answer. Spellhunter finds itself in a dominant position despite the loss of Barnes and Yisharaj. Mostly due to the addition of new beasts in the Deathstalker Rexar pool, Hunter is able to find a way out of most situations. The class was also gifted one of the most powerful spellstones that's easy to build, which could alone justify playing the archetype. Even Shaman sneaks its way into Tier 2 as being only the second best Shaman archetype currently viable for competitive ladder play. While not seen nearly as much as its shudderingly powerful counterpart, Even Shaman is still an extremely versatile deck that's very good at snowballing board leads. Hagatha also provides the deck with much-needed removal and access to spell generation, which can allow you to sneak wins in matchups that become more grindy. Odd Rogue finds itself as the highest-rated pure aggro archetype in the snapshot. The hero power gain from Baku the Mooneater is beyond powerful in both slow and fast matchups. Whether it be to snowball a board lead or to push that extra damage to face, the weapon is a valuable tool for the rogue to utilize. The deck can also cheese out strong early victories with a turn 3 Vicious Fledgling or Hench Clan Thug, making it difficult for control decks to respond to consistently. Be sure to check out our Odd Rogue deck introduction linked in the description below. Aggro Mage stays relevant as the deck does well against all forms of slower Warlock decks, 2 of which happen to be among the strongest decks in the current metagame. With snowballing cards such as Mana Worm, a large pool of burn spells, and huge amounts of Cycle in Aluneth, Arcane Intellect, and Arcanologist, this deck is a well-rounded deck to jam quick games with, as long as it can avoid Odd Paladin. To play the role of control killer in a more combo-oriented way, Malygos Druid finds itself in competitive position in terms of strength and consistency. By making use of Twig of the World Tree, players can effectively receive 2 turns, allowing for crazy Malygos combos. Some players have even begun experimenting with this mana manipulation with King Togwaggle and Azalina Soul Thief, the decklist authors sitting in a comfortable rank 3 legend in the last days of the May season. After seeing competitive play at the America Summer Playoffs, Recruit Warrior began to pull more traction. Now the deck finds itself doing extremely well due to the good matchup against Token Druid and Shutterwalk Shaman. Some lists feature a Charged Devilsar package, but for this snapshot we're featuring Orange's big recruit list from his tournament-winning lineup, which is able to build larger boards and present greater threats to the control and combo meta. Its strong performance against Token Druid is one of the reasons why this archetype sits at Tier 2 in this week's Meta Snapshot. Despite popular belief, Control Priest did not make the title of best deck following the nerfs. While still very powerful, the best decks run a lot of healing and armor gain while still putting on a lot of pressure, which prevents Priest from safely bursting you down with Shadow Reaper Anduin, Shadow Visions, and Mind Blasts. Quest Warrior finds itself landing near the end of Tier 2. With a large amount of removal and high damage endgame, Quest Warrior is able to hold its own playing versus many different decks, but none of which are as popular as those that counter it. This makes the Quest deck slightly too weak to dominate the meta. Finally, ending Tier 2 last, we have Odd Paladin. After the nerf to Call to Arms, Even Paladin fell out of the meta, but Odd Paladin was untouched. Warlock being weaker allows Paladin to have a few more turns to close out games before they're faced with an endless taunt wall. If Taunt Druid, Aggro Mage, Odd, or Miracle Rogue become too much, count on Odd Paladin to make a reliable appearance in these pocket metas. As we mentioned before, in one of the first times in a while, all 9 classes are represented in the top 2 tiers. While this extremely diversifies the meta, it also makes it very hard to target and counter as you'll be seeing so many different decks daily. The best plan you can take to the ladder this June would be to play one of the highest tier decks you enjoy. It's too hard to accurately predict what you'll be facing off against, so you should take the time to enjoy the meta while you can. That being said, consider a combination of Cube-Lock, Taunt Druid, and Shutterwalk Shaman to feel out the ladder, and use our website to find the best counters for decks you find the most of in your climb. Following the Witchwood nerfs, the meta has been shaken up significantly. Every day, the meta will continue to evolve and bring new changes to the tier lists, and only time will tell which of the decks will remain in the coming weeks. We hope you enjoyed our first meta snapshot of the new patch. Be sure to let us know in the comments what decks you've been enjoying so far and what you'd like us to do a deck introduction for next. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel for the latest Tempo Storm news and Hearthstone content. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time.